Welcome, Tim Busch, founder of the Napa Institute. I'm here with Brian Hooks, the CEO of Stand Together and the head of the Charles Koch Foundation. We're going to do an interview today about a new book that Charles and Brian has written called Believe in People, Bottom-Up Solutions for a Top-Down World. This book is going to be coming out November the 17th, and so stand in line to get your copy. You'll learn more about how a portion of your purchase price can be allocated to the Catholic University of America. And so we're going to go through a series of questions that reconcile what this book is about, Believe in People, and how it so closely aligns Catholic social teaching. And so I know everyone on this conference is very interested. So I'm going to kick it off, Brian, and ask a couple of opening questions. First of all, why did Charles and you write this book?
Well, Tim, before I answer the question, let me say thank you to you and the Napa Institute. We so appreciate being included. As you know, as a longtime partner with our organization Stand Together, the Napa Institute's mission is near and dear to our heart. I've had the good fortune of being able to participate in a number of your events, and I've got a lot of admiration for what you guys do. Business leaders coming together to solve problems sounds a lot like what we do at Stand Together, and so our partnership has been great, both with Napa and with you and Steph. So really appreciate you taking the time. As you say, I mean, we're excited about this book. If you ask Charles, why do we write it? We wrote it because there's a lot of people right now around the country looking around and kind of shaking their head and saying, there's got to be a better way. And so the book is complete with lessons, as you say, and stories of Americans, both present and throughout history, who have faced really tough challenges. Challenges that a lot of people thought would be impossible to overcome, but through applying a set of principles, kind of the principles that our country was founded on, consistently striving to do better, they found new and better ways to overcome those problems. And that's ultimately what we need to do right now in our country, given everything that we're facing.
Yeah, I thought throughout the book, you and Charles made an incredible point about the partisanship. And how's that working out for us? We're just getting angrier and angrier as we watch two different television networks and reporting on the same subject, and we're getting completely different information. So we've got to have another way. There has to be another way. So in the book, you write for an audience of what you and Charles call social entrepreneurs. Charles spent a lot of time calling for principled entrepreneurship, the theme of our conference here, which you have a trademark on the name and have licensed us, which is the name of this conference. What is the relationship between social entrepreneurs and principled entrepreneurship?
Well, that's right. And everything that you've done both at Catholic University, at the Busch School, and really kind of breathing life into this idea of principled entrepreneurship through the work of Napa, is very much in line with what Charles wrote about in one of his previous books, Good Profit. And I'll never forget, you put Charles next to Cardinal Turkson to talk about the positive role that business can play in helping to empower people throughout society at one of the events that we participated in. And so you know that principled entrepreneurship usually refers to the role that business leaders play in positioning their business to create long-term value for their customers, their employees, and their other constituents. And so we apply that same concept, but go well beyond business. And so we think about social entrepreneurs as people who see innovative and new ways to help empower people to overcome the barriers that are holding them back at a time when everybody else tends to only see the problem. And what we do in the book is we talk through a number of stories of people who we consider to be model social entrepreneurs. People who have just helped a tremendous number of people to tackle problems of poverty, problems of addiction, problems of violence, and really do it throughout the various different areas of society that tend to be so important and meaningful to helping people to really flourish and realize their potential. We think about entrepreneurs in business. It's easy to envision entrepreneurs in terms of helping people to find new ways to overcome poverty. One of the primary areas that we focus on in the book is entrepreneurs in education. And when I think about entrepreneurs in education, I think about guys like Andrew Abella at Catholic University or Andreas Widmer, guys that have a tremendous gift and they found a way to apply that gift to benefit others through new and innovative approaches to education. And we see that again throughout society.
Well, we thank you and Charles for what happened at Catholic University of America. Yes, I was involved, and yes, but I was encouraged by you and Charles and your commitment there, and it was ended up being the largest gift Catholics ever seen. And it's the business school. The first thing, the encyclical comes out on Sunday, and there's some stuff in there that maybe we would write differently. But the first place everybody went to was the Busch School because it was the Catholic University of America. So thank you for encouraging me and others to be involved. So throughout the book, you and Charles talk about the principles of progress. There's a lot of overlap between these principles and the teachings of the Catholic Church. So did faith have any influence on your writings or on your findings in this book?
Well, it should come as no surprise, right? I mean, what we talk about in this book is that there are certain principles that, when applied throughout history, have helped to empower people to do better and to do better for themselves by doing better by others. And so while we don't start off as a faith-based organization, it shouldn't be a surprise to anybody that a lot of the groups that we work with are faith-based. In fact, my team tells me that about a quarter of the organizations, a full 25% of those that we work with in communities, say, groups that are working to overcome poverty, are formally faith-based organizations. So there's a lot of overlap, a lot of shared vision, as we would say, with people who are primarily motivated by their faith. And we think there's tremendous opportunity here. In fact, at Stand Together, we've got a work stream that's focused specifically on how we can come alongside faith-based organizations who have a shared vision. You look at a group like Safe Families for Children, which is a group that we're really excited about. It's in a few states right now. We're working with them to expand nationally. This is a group that works with kids that would otherwise go into the foster care system. And I'm sure you know, and the folks at the conference know, that that's not a good place for kids to be. Kids that go into the foster care system tend to do very poorly by every account, but for some very, very rare exceptions. What Safe Families for Children does is they say, hey, families who are in trouble, who would otherwise have their kids taken away from them, they can be helped. And so if we come alongside them and help them to solve whatever problems they have, not only can they stay together, but their children can stay with them. And this group has about a 90%, greater than 90% of the families that they work with. That's what happens. The families stay together and the kids stay in those families. But it's a really labor-intensive program. And so they rely on volunteers, tens of thousands of volunteers. And where do they get most of those volunteers? It's through churches, right? Because people are motivated to help one another, to do good. But they need a little bit of direction in terms of where they can channel that motivation, and groups like Safe Families provide that motivation. So anyway, there's a lot of overlap. It starts with vision and principles, and then there's a ton of opportunity for us to work alongside people of faith to help people improve their lives.
Well, this is what I'm talking about, being Catholic social teaching, and for that matter, Christian social teaching, and that is the nuclear family is where our problem begins and ends. And when you can salvage the nuclear family in this instance, as opposed to pulling the kids away, which destroys the nuclear family, it destroys not only the life of the child, but the life of the family as well. And so salvaging the nuclear family is so critical. I was once with Charles, and I told him, you fix the family and all these other problems go away. And so I think at the root of solving a lot of our problems, criminal justice and addiction and repression, it's all based on the family and keeping the family together.
It's a great example of what we say, the top-down approach versus empowering people from the bottom up. People want to come in with a top-down approach to fix problems, but they tend to create more problems. When you empower these families to be the solution, not only do you fix the immediate problem, but you help them to thrive going forward.
Well, Charles often speaks about, and he mentions this in the book, there's 17 constants, I'm not a physicist, that hold our world together. And if those constants are off by even a fraction, the whole world blows up. He has taken, and the book articulates this, he's taken this philosophy of science and applied it to essentially sociology, or the way people relate, and argued that that too has 17 constants and they all tie together. This is biblical. This is God's promise to us that it is all integrated, but he gives us free will, and it's that free will where we get ourselves in trouble. So at the heart of the book, and this is so Catholic social teaching, is that everyone has worth and potential and a unique gift. In Catholicism, we often speak dignity of the human person. It seems like you and Charles very much agree with this concept. How did you arrive at it, and what do you mean by the dignity of a human person?
No, that's exactly right. The human dignity. I mean, it's right at the core of everything that we do. I mean, we named the book Believe in People, right? And when you recognize that every person has an inherent dignity, you're obligated to believe in them, to recognize that they've got a gift. And to the extent that as a society we can structure ourselves to make it more likely that they're going to discover that gift and then find ways to apply it such that it helps other people and also helps themselves, everybody's going to be better off. And so we go through in the book how this notion is so central to all of human progress. And so when societies, when countries, when organizations truly embrace this idea, that's when progress takes off. You know, you see the history of mankind for thousands of years was basically poverty, you know, with very few exceptions. And then this thing happens, which economists call the hockey stick of human progress, right? You see this flat line of progress, then all of a sudden things take off. And that inflection point is when society started to say, wait a minute, people matter, everyone has human dignity, and if we recognize that, then we can all do better. And look, we've never done as well as we should as a society by that principle, but the more that we can truly embrace that idea of human dignity, the more that we ought to expect to see, you know, greater progress and ultimately the ability to come together to solve a lot of the problems that are holding us back. So you're right, that's at the core of what we do. And again, it's no coincidence that we're such good partners, right? Because that's so much at the core of what you and Napa do.
You know, this follows up on the theological concept of co-creation, that each of us were made to work. That was really what we came for, and part of our work is creation. Each person's work has dignity, whether you're a housekeeper in one of my hotels or whether you're the CEO of Apple. And we're, you know, too much is given, much is expected. These are all Christian principles, they're biblical. And it's the only way people can really have true joy is when they co-create with their creator, with God himself. And that's part of the human dignity and a part of the gifts. And it's so well articulated in this book, Believe in People. So I hope you'll get it in November when it rolls out. So Believe in People talks a lot about empowerment, the idea that people who are closest to problems are best suited to solve them. This sounds like a lot like the principle of subsidiarity, which is a fundamental Catholic social teaching that decisions should be made at the lowest level. Can you speak why this concept is so important and whether it's called empowerment or subsidiarity?
Well, that's right. So at the core of the solutions to our countries and our society's challenges is this recognition that the people that are best suited to solve the problem are often those that are closest to it. And so we go through a lot of examples of what that looks like in the book. You know, my friend Scott Strode, who leads the Phoenix, which is a remarkable organization. It's a peer-to-peer physical fitness program for people in recovery from substance abuse disorder, people who have been addicted to drugs and alcohol. And it's one of the most effective programs in the country on this front. It's twice as effective as the best clinical programs. Scott, in partnership with Stand Together, we're scaling it all across the country. They're in 50 cities now. And it's led by a guy who himself, for 10 years, was addicted to drugs and alcohol. Now, most people would say, wait a minute, this program is too important to be left to a guy like Scott, right? But they get that exactly backwards. This is a bottom-up solution that is empowering people, recognizing that just because you've made mistakes in your life or you've struggled, it doesn't mean we ought to give up on you as a society. And here again, you're the expert on the overlap with Catholic social teaching, but my read of the Bible says there's a ton of stories like that in the Bible as well, right? Where people who most people might give up on are empowered to do extraordinary things, through redemption and second chances. And ultimately, if we're going to make progress together as a society, we've got to take another look at people that right now the system is structured to give up on, and we need to say, what do we need to do to change that so that they're in a position to contribute, again, based on their dignity, based on that gift that they have to contribute.
Yeah, it was in the book, our mutual friend, Art Sioka, had his story about the gal who was on a production line for wine, and the labeling system wasn't working. The label was beautiful, but it was not practical. So they redesigned the label and produced 600 million more bottles of wine off of that same line. And the woman was ready to walk off her job because she just couldn't do her job. And fortunately, Art listened to her and implemented her recommendations.
So this stuff works everywhere. It works in education, it works in community groups that are dealing with poverty, and it works in business. Art's an extraordinarily successful business guy. And if you ask him, he's told both of us, it's because he practices these kind of principles.
Well, he's been a great benefactor, Catholic U, and we've gotten to be great friends, and I met him through you. So thank you. So a big part of your book is how philanthropists can make a bigger difference. A lot of our audiences does philanthropy work through the Catholic Church and other avenues. What do we need to keep in mind if we want to do the most good for most people? I think in particular of your argument for a better way to solve poverty and the failings of the war on poverty, which began back in the 1960s.
That's right. It began back in the 1960s, and what do we have to show for it after, decades of effort and over $20 trillion spent on this war on poverty? And at best, I think you can say what it's done is that it's made it easier for people to endure poverty, but probably harder for people to escape it. So I think the lessons from that are lessons that we need to take to heart, not just for government policy, which we do, but also for philanthropy. And so we go through in the book the idea that kind of a top-down thinking that sees people as problems to be solved, right, which is what the war on poverty does to a large extent. We ought to expect that to fail every time, whether it's being done by government or by philanthropy. And the inverse of that is true as well, to the extent that philanthropy comes alongside people, recognizes what they have to contribute, helps them to build on their gifts, and empowers them to be all that they can be. That's the kind of philanthropy that can really solve problems. And so I think we got to ask ourselves, and this is what we try to do, what kind of programs are we supporting? Are we supporting programs like some that we've talked about and some that you guys support, like the program at Catholic University, which really does put people first? It's sort of based on this core deep belief in people, and it sees its mission as empowering people. Or are we, with the best intentions, are we supporting programs that ultimately seeks to control people from the top down? I think the more that we can be conscious of that distinction, the better we'll do in the world, and the better results that we ought to expect to see from our philanthropy as well.
Yeah, I really commend this concept to the viewers, because many times our churches are doing top-down enablement. They're handing down instead of hand up, and they're giving out fish instead of teaching you to fish. And the old saying, and I think that we really need to rethink how our churches help people. Surely, on a short-term basis, sometimes you do need a hand down. You do need food and clothing. But if it's just going to be continual, then you're taking away the dignity of that person, and this is defying God's plan for each and every one of us. His plan is not for us to live off of other people. His plan for us is to grow and to co-create with Him. So
No, I think that's right. And this is part of what we try to accomplish in the book. We have to recognize that most of that is done with the best of intentions. So people want to do good, but sometimes they just need a little bit of help seeing what that looks like. And so hopefully the lessons that we share here can help those who are already motivated to contribute to see better results from their actions along the lines that you just described.
Exactly. So you and Charles make a powerful argument for inclusion and equal rights in the book. A lot of us at this conference are worried about the erosion of religious liberty and being excluded from the economy and civil society. Can you speak about why it's so important to let different beliefs flourish and coexist in the public square?
Absolutely. And I have to say I commend you and Napa for what you do to support religious freedom, religious liberty. It is absolutely essential for progress, right? You think about, how does innovation happen? It's when somebody looks at the way things are and they say, wait a minute, I think they could be different. And that requires people to be free to think, right? Free to believe. And if we start to tolerate limits on that freedom of belief, that's the road to decline and even worse. We talk a little bit in the book about what it means to live under an authoritarian regime, where people people think about it as the epitome of top-down control. And in many ways it is, right? Because authoritarians will control the actions of the people that live in that society. And it's awful, right? Completely cuts off human progress. But there's something worse than authoritarianism, and that's totalitarianism, where you don't just control people's actions, but you control their thoughts, their beliefs. And to do that not only prevents people from flourishing in the physical world, but it really crushes their soul, their spirit. And that's, unfortunately, that's not a dystopia. We've seen that happen in this world, and it wasn't that long ago. And so we need to be very vigilant in protecting our fundamental freedoms, and freedom of religion is right near the top of that list.
And I've heard that for economic metrics, religious freedom is the most important. You wouldn't think so, but it's the most important for the reasons that you said. And sometimes the Catholic Church is, well, you're all about everybody's got to be Catholic in order to go to heaven. First of all, that's not what the Catholic Church believes in. But second of all, the Catholic Church, we've been guilty back centuries ago where kings were Catholic, and this brought up in the book, and so everybody in the country was Catholic, or they were killed, or whatever the faith was. And today, the modern American Church, the Vatican, they're of the opinion that no, religious freedom is very, very important. Yes, Christians are being persecuted, but no faith should be persecuted. No faith. Not just Christian faith, no faith. So this is very essential to us. And we are fortunate in this country. We really have had some great rulings on religious liberty. The Becket Fund, Alliance Defending Freedom, to name just a couple of them, that are big supporters of Napa Institute. They've had some incredible cases at the Supreme Court, and even this recent Supreme Court decision. So you, Charles, and Stand Together have a long history of partnering with religious people, including myself. Why is that the case?
Well, that's right. I mean, as you know, Tim, because you've been a partner with Charles and with Stand Together for a long time, we've got a pretty explicit theory of partnership, right? We think there's three elements that have to be present for a partnership to really flourish. You got to share vision, you got to share values, and you got to bring complementary capabilities to the table. And so again, it shouldn't be any surprise that a number of our close-in partners are people of faith. We share a vision that starts with recognizing that to the extent that we can help people to realize their potential, we're all going to be better off. And that to the extent there are barriers that are holding people back, we can come together to remove those barriers. We share values, starting with this deep belief in people and all that we've talked about relating to the inherent dignity of every person. And then, we tend to bring complementary capabilities. So, we talked about the partnership at Catholic U. There's no way that Stand Together could have accomplished that but for what you brought to the table, but for what Andrew Abella brought to the table, and but for what some of our other partners brought to the table. And so when we combine our efforts, our promise has always been that we can make a greater difference by working together than any one of us can on our own. And we try to sort of unpack what it looks like to do that through this book. But that's been our experience, and to the extent that you and the community that you bring to the table continues to see that promise pay out. We're enthusiastic about continuing our partnership. It's just been a great experience.
Thank you very much for this interview. It's my privilege to be here with you, and God bless.
Thanks, Tim.
The Believe in People book is coming out November the 17th. So to order one, go to the website, believeinpeoplebook.com, and you'll see the promotion code listed below on the screen where you can have your portion of the price allocated to Catholic University of America. Thank you and God bless.